All right, this week on the Stereo Image, we are blessed to have one of the greatest conductors in history joining us, Leonard Slatkin, who has done records that I bought when I was a teenager, let's say.
Maybe feel even older.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say when I was a child, but that would be too insulting. I think I'll tell you, many of your recordings I got in my first couple of years of high school, and when you signed with Teller, I remember getting the Barber Adagio and just playing that to death. And I just, you're just an incredible all-around musician, an incredible conductor, and I don't know how much more I can say without sounding like I'm going to start stalking you, but it's really great to have you, and thank you so much for being with you, Mike. It's
really
you're giving an air of legitimacy to the podcast.
Well, maybe so, but on the other hand, you've had fabulous people on. It's just, I guess, people don't think someone who does what I do has interests other than what I do.
Right.
And that's not the case. I've been a jazz lover all my life.
Right.
I grew up on the Hollywood soundstages. Mm-hmm. I had a rock band when I was in high school. So for me, the musical tastes were always very broad and varied. And I was just a kind of normal American kid.
Right.
Who happened to go into the classical field
and become a giant in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if I've met anyone with as many Grammys as you. But I will say that one of the things that I've discovered doing this and talking with people is so many people have many more, everyone's got a wide variety of interests, and people get pigeonholed as I'm sure you know, as being jazz guys or classical guys or rock guys. And it's rarely the case. I mean, I talked to a wonderful jazz drummer that I work with in Chicago, and it turns out he's a big fan of Rush, the rock band. And I had my Oscar Peterson records right next to my Led Zeppelin records when I was at Berkeley.
I was the same, exactly. It was just music. It's what Duke Ellington said, that there are only two kinds of music. There's good music and the other stuff.
Yeah, and I agree.
And we all get to determine what our best.
Right. But it's just, I want to first just touch on what you're doing here in Vegas while you're here. Because it's really important for Vegas is trying so desperately to become an actual city, I think, and have an arts center and and the Smith Center, of course, being built was a huge step in that.
Yeah.
But bringing in someone of your stature to make it important, to make it something worth paying attention to, is really good. I'm happy to see that.
My role here is kind of the result of all these years of experience. I'm 81 now. Mm-hmm. I've led 6 orchestras as music director in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped away from that 8 years ago when I wrapped up in Detroit,
right,
vowing that I wasn't going to do it again because the rules and conventions of our time are in many cases not in sync with how I like to work. I thought I don't need to be administrating anymore.
Right.
Well, the person who was my assistant, not conductor, kind of person who took care of travel arrangements and all that, was in Detroit. And then she moved with her husband to Sacramento. She became the executive director of the orchestra there, and then got the job here in Vegas. They were looking for a music director, and she asked if I would come to help bridge the gap between the time that they were searching and when they actually picked somebody. Right. And I am somebody who's very loyal to the people who've meant something to me in my career. So I said, sure, I'd be happy to do it. I have a long association with the city for things we'll probably talk about later. And I came to just help them through this, organize a process, select a new person, put the repertoire together, maybe help the orchestra in understanding part of how they can be more into the fabric of what we would call the new Las Vegas. I mean, you're 100% right. This city is changing a lot. There's incredible number of new businesses that are coming in, new supporters, all the area here where you live and all that. This wasn't here when I was a kid.
There was one here 15 years ago.
So there's growth. And when you have growth, that means that you have the chance to reach into a new potential for audience, for donors, for all the things that go to make up the artistic community. I found that museums here actually now have changed how we think about museums. They're not traditional at all.
Right.
There's something different. Many of them are technologically way ahead of other places I've seen. They deal with specific topics. So the orchestra had to become part of that. And I wanted to help a little bit. So I conducted for a couple of weeks each year, guided them to the auditions for new players, worked on helping to build the audience. And when I was here last November, the right conductor as a guest came. She's incredible. She will be the new music director starting next season. I will still come and do a week each season because I love being here. And she's just the right person for the job. And so I did what I needed to do.
Right.
Now I have to do the same for another orchestra, and that's in another city with amazing growth, Nashville.
Oh, really?
I'm going to go to Nashville.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I played a show in Nashville during the pandemic, and they had canceled it. And then he said, "Would you be willing to play an outdoor amphitheater?" And it was CPAP or something.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well," she said, "We'll spread everyone out on the lawn, and you come out." And I went out and I wound up doing about almost a 2.5 hour solo show.
Whoa!
Because they wouldn't stop. They wouldn't let me stop, and because they were so hungry and nothing had happened.
And that's why these two cities are somewhat similar: Las Vegas and Nashville. Nash Vegas, they sometimes call it, because they're known for entertainment that we don't usually associate with, let's just call it the high culture for want of something better. And yet they have this fabulous orchestra. They have an incredible hall that I opened 20 years ago.
Wow.
And all these wonderful musicians throughout the city. People are moving to Nashville. Businesses are going there. So they're also in this moment of opportunity. And I think for me now, getting back into administrative mode is okay if I'm working in cities where we're not tied to the past, but looking forward to what might be.
Right. That's because you go to Boston and Chicago and New York, and there's, 100 years of this is the way we do things. Yeah. And you fight against that. And it just seems to be, it seems to be fruitless because you can't really affect the change that you would like to see happen.
I was just thinking as you're saying that, you started here in Vegas with Penn Teller?
No, I came a year before. 2 years before.
So what year was that?
I came in 99.
Okay. At that time, magic wasn't what it's become.
Right.
That sort of kicked off this, what are at least 20 magic shows going on here?
Right.
So again, change. Yeah. Things were different. And if you can be part at the beginning of that change, it gives you a real sense of, I've accomplished that.
Right.
And it's so integral to the show. People probably don't think of it that way, but I do. Because your role is just so crucial to the transitions, to what's going on.
It's very strange. I mean, I famously said to Penn when he said, "Why don't you play in our show?" I said, "Well, what would you need jazz and a magic show for?" And he said, "Well, I want to play with you every night." Now, at that point, he'd been playing upright bass for a year. And I said, "You really want to get out in front of 1,400 people a night and play the bass?" And he said, "Well, I'm not going to get any better if I don't do it."
Yeah.
And that's their attitude about everything. It's learning a magic move, developing a trick. It's all something you just work at it until it works.
I got to experience them for the first time. It's got to be maybe 40 years ago in New York, in a small theater and all that. I was always interested in magic. It was just one of those things. And I even developed a little routine that I did with a deck of cards, about 5.5 minutes, where it was called, let's see if I remember it, with the King's Quartet. I called it that.
Okay.
So I made the 4 kings in the deck a string quartet. And they're getting to go on their way to a performance, and they all get lost in the building. The rest of the deck is the building.
Sure.
So I built a whole routine based on that. And I took some lessons at the Magic Castle in LA and got to know some people there. So it's always been fascinating. And the reason for me, it must be really interesting for you, is that when I conduct, unless there are seats that where the chorus might be seated and the audience members are there, I don't see the audience. Right. So my back is to them the whole time. I wanted to do something where I could see the audience.
Right, sure.
And that's why I started getting interested in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was actually something that was good. And then one year I actually hit one of my fingers with the baton. Went through, there's still hard tissue here. Oh. So I can't manipulate the cards anymore. So I had to stop doing that. But to get to know the two of them, and now you, of course, has been a real pleasure in my life, because it takes me back to a time when I was writing about things in my life.
Well, it's never a role I could have imagined when I was going to school and when I was playing in jazz clubs. And I remember having a conversation with my dad about it and saying, I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about moving to Chicago, and my father said, well, you should try it, see what happens. And I did it. And this was Penn and Teller. One of the reasons they're successful is they have goofy ideas. And as the manager that we had before, Glenn, said to me, you're just a goofy idea that Penn had that worked out. And because Penn gets excited about things, and he says, oh, let's try this. And he says, I assume, and Teller was very kind from the beginning. I didn't know Teller at all. And he said, you add a richness to the show.
And a dimension.
Well, thank you.
And I think that's exactly right. That you wouldn't think that for half hour, 35 minutes, or whatever it is you play before the show, people are coming in, and they're probably, people that's going for the first time, they're probably, what's going on here? Unless you really know it's Penn there, you really can't really tell. And you're going on, and you're incredible, and the sound that you're making is great, and you're doing stride, and you're doing blues, and you're doing this, and you're doing that. And I'm going nuts when I'm there. I'm just thinking, this is fabulous. Realize that probably most people are, this is very strange. And I think that's exactly the vibe they were going for.
It is. And it's also, as they said the first night that I played with them, they opened with their, I'm sure you've seen it, the big inflatable things that they did. And it was a big production number, and they would come out, and that's how they opened their show. The second night, they said, we think you've developed a rapport with the audience that changes the whole dynamic. And they opened with the box trick. Mm-hmm. And then it was 2 weeks later, oh, would you like to play the fire reading music? Oh, would you like to write new music for the fire reading? Oh, we've got 3 new tricks going in. Would you like to write me? And I've written 60, 70 pieces of music for them over the years now. And all the transitions and all that. And when we got to Broadway in 2015, the director said, I want you to play every transition. I want you on the stage for the entire show. And it was work, but I didn't even think of it as work, because I thought, oh, I've got another idea for this bit. And Teller said to me once, he said, how is it that everything you come up with for the show is exactly what we need? And I said, it's just luck, but anyhow.
And a few years in the business.
Yeah. I think, and honestly, without going on about me, but I think a lot of what makes me so pliable with that stuff is the years that I spent doing jingles, and writing for ad agencies. And so, but anyhow, enough about me. You're the star, and you're the guest, and you're who I want to hear stories from. And I want to know, of course, the stories of Art Tatum coming to your house as a child, and other things that
Art Tatum did not come to our house as a child.
Well, he was not.
I was a child.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to correct you grammatically.
No, yes. But before we...
I do like the image, though.
Yeah, exactly. A small Art Tatum blowing everyone away. But I do want to, before I even get to that, we have to point out that among all your recordings, the thing that I was very impressed with was that you conducted the orchestra on the soundtrack recording of The Exorcist. And I've really
of course, there's a story here.
Oh, good. I want to hear this.
Well, Warner's really didn't think they were going to have a big hit on their hand.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it was just going to be another film out. Sure. And the lines went around the block and people were going nuts. Like films of that time, which began with Kubrick in 2001 film, they used music from other sources.
Right.
Which meant that Warner Brothers could not issue a soundtrack recording because the licensing came from either Deutsche Grammophon or EMI or whatever it is.
Sure.
So now they needed something to put out as a soundtrack. Mm-hmm. I got a call. I was still pretty young. And I was surprised. They said, could you get to London? We'll fly you over on the Concorde to do this. And you spend a week and you'll record the music that we need. Now, most people didn't know, aside from Tubular Bells of Mike Oldfield, right, that there was music in The Exorcist. But it was music of Penderecki, of Webern, of George Crumb, things like that. So we had to do it so Warner's could put it on what was still a new label at the time, our label of Warner's. And it was the first thing I'd ever done in London. I had never been to London to work before. So I go to the Abbey Road studios and we do this. And there was one session, for example, one of the pieces was from the 5 string pieces by Webern. They're all very short. Mm-hmm. And there was one piece that was a total of 45 seconds, the whole track. So we record that. They said, okay, that's time, thank you. I said, wait a minute, we still have 2.5 hours of session time. Yes, but that's what we have for today. I said, maybe we should record the other 4 pieces to have them? Sure. No, just let everybody go. And, that was how budgets worked for movies back then. Just, let's be budgeted for it. We don't need the players, go home. So that was my very first experience. But what happened was the director, Friedkin, and the screenwriter, William Peter Blatty, had a big argument about how the cover of the album was going to look. And they fought about it for 9 months. The soundtrack didn't appear till almost a year after the film was out. And of course, nobody got it. Nobody bought it. It wasn't interesting, but it is out there.
Right. Well, it's amazing. The people get in these, I guess it's my age now, where I just don't care. These things, who cares what the album cover looks like? It didn't.
But back then, it was still LPs. It did matter.
Oh, no, it's true. That's true. And I mean, as I say, I'm lucky enough to have David do my covers, and I care about that. But for a director and a writer of the book to get into an argument over what the cover should look like, to hold it up for 9 months, just comes. And
speaking of covers, the first album we did in St. Louis for EMI, which was back. Well, it was after it used to be Angel Records. Mm-hmm. I remember the managers. So we recorded 2 Copland ballets, Billy the Kid and Rodeo. Mm-hmm. And we did have cover art approval. And they decided they were going to have a dancer dressed in his cowboy outfit. Mm-hmm. And to say that what he was wearing had a significant package, shall we say.
Sure.
And the cover writer, we all went, whoa, this is not quite what we expected. And maybe it's a little over the top for the time, because this was in the early 90s, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's slightly different than it was. But we thought, this is going to a different audience than we thought.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And there was another one. I did a Tchaikovsky cycle for RCA, all the symphonies. And they had this idea. By this time, CDs were in. Mm-hmm. So they had the concept that each of the CDs would have a sort of portrait of Tchaikovsky in some way. Mm-hmm. But if you eventually owned all 6, you could put the 6 together and made a giant poster to Tchaikovsky.
Sure.
Well, the company was bought by BMG, a German group.
Sure, I know.
Oh. And they decided for the last one, they didn't like this idea. And the last one had the Second Symphony, 1812 Overture, and Romeo and Juliet. And they put this cover on it with 2 young people in bed.
I think I recall.
I kept going, I'd like to say that's me on the cover, but it's not. But it totally blew away the whole concept of the other 5 albums. Now it meant nothing.
Wow. Well, I'm still thinking about the guy's package. But I know, I understand that it's important, but not to hold up, but it's wonderful to know that, even, they had to deal with these rights issues and things. Because, if you bought the soundtrack to The Shining, which I did, yes. And there's, at the end of The Shining, they play Al Boley singing the song Home. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't get the rights for the soundtrack album. So they put out, it's Al Boley was singing Midnight, mm-hmm. and they replaced it with a version of the song Home, which they could get the rights to. And it bothered me immensely.
I remember going to a movie once. I'm a huge movie person.
Sure.
I remember once going and the credits are rolling and it's over a piece of music. I can't remember which one. And all of a sudden I see it's my recording music is the end credits. Nice. They're nice, but somebody should have told me beforehand.
Yes, perhaps there should have been a royalty involved as well. I have a lot of movies. I have about 2,000 DVDs in my garage, but they're in my garage because it's easier to stream them.
Yeah.
So talk about a little bit about we talked about the child Art Tatum coming to your house.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear what was everything like.
It helps to understand.
Slow.
It helps to understand my whole family were in music.
Right.
And leaving aside the grandparents and all that, my father was the concertmaster at 20th Century Fox.
Okay.
And my mother was the first cellist at Warner's.
Okay.
And this is starting in the late 30s, at least for my dad, through when did he stop? 53 or 54.
Really?
My mother continued, but everything changed in 1956 because the McCarthy Commission came in and the whole concept of the independent studios with their own orchestras, directors, writers, composers, that all disappeared.
Okay.
So that's another story one time. So that was one part of their lives. Second part of their lives was as half of the Hollywood String Quartet, playing the quartet repertoire, of course. And the third part was as part of the growing pop industry in the 40s and 50s in Los Angeles, particularly with Capitol Records.
Okay.
They were close to every musician in town, right? Because everybody wanted my dad for concertmaster and my mom for first cellist.
Okay.
Among the people who became very close to the family was Frank Sinatra. Mm-hmm. Sinatra would not do an album without my parents there. In fact, one time when my father was apparently coming off some sort of, my father said he was sick. He had like a flu. Mm-hmm. And he got to the session and said, Frank, I just don't feel well. I don't think I can do this. Sinatra looked at the orchestra and said, Felix is not feeling well. You'll get paid. We're canceling the session. And we just sent everybody on. He would not do it without my dad. Wow. So because of the associations with Capitol, all the Capitol artists were at the house as well, because they always wanted to seek the attention of my folks, get their approval in some cases, because they were so well respected. And there would be these little musicales that would happen, and they would put together the various components of different genres of music. And Art Tatum came a couple times to the house. You probably know the 2 CD set that Ray Heindorf put together.
Yes.
Ray Heindorf was involved in Warner's.
Okay.
As one of the conductors there. And so they did something similar at our house. They didn't record it, but he would come over and he would just sit at the piano and play. Every artist who came to our house played on that piano, which I still have.
Really?
So it wasn't just him. It was Arthur Rubinstein.
Oh my.
It was George Shearing. Mm-hmm. You name them. They played on that piano.
Wow.
And it's not a 9-foot. No, it's like a 5.5 foot, but the sound is tremendous.
Oh,
it was wonderful. So we grew up with that. Sinatra was over all the time. I don't know if you're aware. You probably are. Sinatra also conducted.
Yes.
He made 3 albums.
It's tone, the colors.
Poems of Color. And there was a Alec Wilder album.
Oh, yeah.
That he did for Columbia, and then one other that I can't remember. But he would always come to my father for conducting lessons. People used to think that Sinatra couldn't read music. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he couldn't read a score with all the instruments, but he could still read a vocal line, and he could pick out what was happening.
Oh, wow.
So, that's
but
anyway, he was over. And what would happen is that my parents would be in the studios in the day. We'd come home, we'd have dinner. Then the quartet would be over there rehearsing at night. Other times, Sinatra would come over, have dinner with us, and then he would take my brother and me by the hand, walk us upstairs, tuck us in, and sing us to sleep.
Oh, jeez. That's it. I mean,
Isn't that amazing?
it is. It's also. I can't imagine he did that for anyone else.
Not too many
You know?
people, I don't
I
think.
mean, except his own kids.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
But we used to come here to Vegas all the time. Spend time here.
How old were you at this point? Like 7
years old. I didn't know.
Mhm.
It was just people came over the house. Look, I met Marilyn Monroe in '53 on the set of How to Marry a Millionaire. The hormones had not kicked in. I didn't know. I had no clue. But I met these people. With Sinatra, he had an affiliation in some way with the Desert Inn as well as the Sands. And my brother and I'd be sitting by the pool, and there'd be an announcement. They used to have these loudspeakers when they were paging people, or paging Leonard and Freddie. Please come to Mr. Sinatra's room. And all these people are sitting around the pool waiting for, some big movie mogul to show up. No, these two kids got up and go.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm assuming that you had only good experiences with him.
Well, always. When I was asked to go to St. Louis as the assistant conductor, Uncle Frank, as we used to call him, we corresponded, and we came very close to putting a show together that we were going to do, but it didn't pan out. But I have a couple of nice letters from him about it.
Oh, that's
It was very sweet. And then when my father died, my dad was only 47.
Oh,
I was 19.
right.
Frank gave the eulogy at the
Oh,
service.
oh.
It was-
Can I ask what happened with Dad?
Yeah. Sadly, my father, who packed a lot into those 47 years, he was a conductor, producer, violinist, arranger, did everything, winding up eventually at Liberty Records and with a very successful series of albums. Well, my dad was also an alcoholic.
Oh,
See, he drank a lot.
Yep.
And he smoked 3.5 packs a day. And he was overweight. So those three combined.
yeah.
It was a Friday. My brother was playing a concert. He was a cellist. When we went to the concert, my dad was passed out on the couch. He didn't go. Came home. I went upstairs. My dad was lying on the floor of the bathroom, and I found him.
Oh, God.
That was it.
Oh, geez. What a story.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just at any age. It's horrible.
But back then, back you went to a studio, you couldn't read the music because the smoke was just.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, even, the first 10, 15, 20 years of my career, you'd go into a club, and, and it was just so, you'd come home, you'd cough up brown stuff.
I'll tell you a story you'll enjoy. The first tour I did with St. Louis to Asia, we went to Japan. The executive director was also a jazz fiend like me, and Oscar Peterson playing at the Blue Note. So I said, we got to go. We took a couple other members of the orchestra just to go here. We're talking about the 80s, right? Everybody in Japan is smoking. Oh, everybody.
Yeah.
There's an announcement that comes on. This is Mr. Peterson requests that while he's playing, there be no smoking. If there's a detection of any smoke coming, he will leave the stage and stop the performance.
Wow.
And in Japan in the 80s, for nobody to smoke for an hour and 15, ooh.
Well, that's the kind of power Oscar had.
Not only that power, but when it was over, I looked at the other guys in the orchestra and said, we didn't hear a set. We heard a master class.
Oh, yeah.
Was with Ray Brown. It wasn't Shelley. I forgot who played drums on that.
It was probably either at that time. Was this the 80s? You said?
Yeah.
It was either. It was probably. It might have been Jeff Hamilton.
No,
but it could have been. It wasn't Ed. Wouldn't be.
No,
Figment.
No, it doesn't matter.
But yeah. Anyways,
but the point is.
But yeah, it's.
I think it's every pianist needs to listen to Oscar.
Well,
just like they need to listen to Tatum.
Right.
You have to.
I mean,
and I'm not talking about jazz pianists. I mean, every pianist.
Right. The touch, the.
But I'm going to add one to the mix. You'll be really surprised. Andre Previn.
Oh, I love Andre Previn.
The early Andre Previn.
Sure.
Is just extraordinary. The harmonic gift he had, the technique, everything, and the sound. Andre was. If we didn't have Leonard Bernstein, Andre would have been Leonard Bernstein.
Wow. And I always thought that I was always disappointed that he took over the Pittsburgh, because for me he was a jazz guy, and I wasn't disappointed. I was thrilled, but he could have been, yes, he would have.
You want to know how he got that job? He was on the road with them on a tour in Pittsburgh, playing a Mozart concerto and conducting. At one of the performances, a string broke on the piano in the Mozart concerto. And rather than stop, he played the whole concerto, avoiding that note.
Wow.
That's how good he was.
Wow. That's amazing.
And substituting something else.
Right.
It worked.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's, I used to, when I was a kid, watch Previn in the Pittsburgh all the time because I just was fascinated by him. And his story is amazing.
There's a wonderful video. It's about an hour long of him interviewing Oscar.
I got it.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I have it.
From London.
Yeah. And, Oscar had 2 television shows. He had a show in London on the BBC.
And Toronto.
And one in Toronto. Yeah, on the CBC. And they were wonderful. And growing up in Buffalo, New York, which is where I grew up, we were lucky enough that we could get over the air the CBC. So I would watch Oscar with Ray, and he'd have Joe Passon, or he'd have Ella, he'd have Dizzy, but then all of a sudden he's got Keith Emerson.
Yeah.
But no, Oscar was a huge, my first influence and so important to me, and to have developed a relationship with his daughter Celine, and Kelly, has been really, really wonderful. But she just put up a thing the other day of when Oscar sent a letter to the North Sea Jazz Festival saying he wouldn't appear there anymore after 1978 because it would become a pop festival.
Yeah.
And then he went back 20 years later.
Something recently, another artist recently said something like that. Like today, as we're talking.
Really?
Somebody else just withdrew because said it didn't go the direction that it was supposed to go. So where do you think jazz is now? It's very different.
It's so different. And I don't listen as much as I should to new things. I am so, I don't want to sound like, an old person.
Okay, yeah.
But I want to say that I'm aware, I hope I have a lot of time left. And I hope that, 30 years from now, I'm still playing the piano and doing these things. And hopefully I will be. I'm in reasonably good shape, and my dad lived to be 88. But the fact is, I find that when I want to enjoy something, I get a level of comfort from going back and listening.
Same thing for me.
To, and I know that there is so much new stuff that falls under the umbrella of jazz.
It's not.
I don't consider jazz.
It's not.
And I don't want to take anything away from the people that are doing important things and have the big careers, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they, play a Gershwin tune and make it swing.
You have to respect the history.
Right.
It's the same thing in the classical world. I will talk to musicians, young ones, whatever. They don't know anything prior to 1980. They're not interested. If they're playing violin, they're not interested in Heifetz. They're not interested in all those names. And it drives me crazy. It's a lack of cultural and intellectual curiosity.
It's like saying you don't know who Abraham Lincoln was.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't around then.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. That's not an excuse.
I will tell you one artist that I've been really fascinated by. I'm not sure that the direction she's going is where she'll wind up, and that's Hiromi.
Oh,
she's quite a talent.
Yeah.
But how she's going to wind up, I'm not sure. We'll see.
Right. Well, but I think that when I was at Berkeley in the 80s, there were bass players there that were major. The bass performance majors who didn't know who Paul Chambers was.
Really?
Didn't know who Jimmy Blanton was. Didn't, you know what I mean? They thought that the bass began with Ron Carter. And I love Ron's playing. And he's a monster player, but don't limit yourself. I listened as much to Bix and Louis,
of course,
than I listened to Coltrane, and I don't. So I don't like to think that I'm shutting myself off from but occasionally I'll hear someone that's young and has all the right things in place and has had the right history and listened, but I don't need to hear a mashup of hip hop and
we came to where we are from the people who came before us.
Right.
We're linear. We're a line.
Yeah.
We can trace all the pianists, all the conductors, all the violinists. We just go in a straight line. We can see how it developed and how it changed. And it's gradual. Nothing. You just don't come in with a new sound, a new style. The other night I was at dinner in a restaurant, my wife and I just sitting, and the music that was being played, and I'm sure you noticed this too, it was all, I don't even know what to call it. The songs today, if you can call them that, basically have a 5-note range.
Right.
And the singers are, I don't even know what they're singing. They're sort of singing.
Right.
And the words are, I don't know what they're doing.
Eligible, yeah.
And I asked my son, who's a composer for film and television, I said, okay, I know it's not hip hop. I know it's not rap. What is this? He said, it's pop music. I said, but everything sounds the same. I couldn't tell you the difference between one singer and another or one song and another. He says, that's how it is.
That's how it is now. It's all algorithms and AI, basically. And, well, I shouldn't say that. It's not all AI yet, but it could be.
Yeah.
For all I care. But the thing is, it's, I mean, I'm of the generation, and you're a bit older than me, but I learned from playing with Clark Terry and with Jerry Mulligan and Flip Phillips and Phil Wilson and Herb Pomeroy in Boston and seeing Dave McKenna every night,
really?
And Dick Johnson and Gray Sargent and they all, I got to play with the guys that played jazz when it was the popular music of the day.
Yeah.
And the inventors of the styles that I mainstreamed.
My experiences as a young person in Los Angeles were at a club called the Manhole. Shelley Manhole,
sure.
On Cahuenga. And I used to play lounge piano when I was 16, illegally, obviously. But
sure.
I had the fake book and all that stuff.
Sure.
And what would happen is all the places would close at 1 a.m, and then all the jazz guys would go to the Manhole, and they'd jam till 6 a.m. And I heard everybody there. I didn't produce it. I wasn't that good. But I mean, to hear Miles Davis play with Dave Brubeck, it didn't work, but they tried.
Well, and that experience is gone.
Yeah.
And part of it is, and I'm not going to start bemoaning the death of jazz, live music and everything, because it's just gone. I got the, there's no lounge in Boston that has a live piano player anymore.
No.
And when I was there were 70 places, 70 places. And so it's just a different, and as I said, the other thing that I've talked about with other people over is everyone that's going to study jazz now is studying it the way a 16-year-old would study Bach. They're they're studying it in a classroom environment, and they're listening to, I mean, they have recordings, there's no recordings of Bach, but you know what I mean? They're ahead of the game that way. But it's like, I'm the last people in their 60s and late 50s are the last generations of musicians that got to play with the guys that invented this stuff. And I take that seriously.
Yeah, I'm very good friends with Michel Camilo.
Oh, sure.
Who is a monster.
Right.
I mean, he's just incredible. It's the same generation. The same exact thing, that respect for what came before. And I'm also, I just saw him a few weeks ago, very good friends with Makoto Ozone.
Oh, Makoto's a dear friend of mine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We went to Berkeley together.
Really?
We were there at the same time.
Wow.
He's just amazing. And I was going to bring him up because I had lunch with him in New York, because now
he's just got a place there.
Yeah, he got a place there, and we were talking, and he was telling Jen, our producer, about he only knew 2 pieces when he started performing with, but
it's amazing. He says he doesn't read music. Of course he does.
Oh, no.
He likes to
tell you this. Of course, I'll tell you a Makoto story that just blew me away. So he was in the Phil Wilson's band, as the big band at Berkeley. And I walked in, and he was writing 2 separate parts out on a score sheet with 2 hands. And I said, this is a level of genius.
Yeah.
And I saw him the first time he played a show at the Berkeley Performance Center. I was sitting in a row, because I came into Berkeley and made friends, and I was a decent enough player that I knew some of the guys on the faculty. And I was sitting next to the entire piano faculty at Berkeley was in a row watching him play. And he launched into a stride version of Giant Steps.
Wow.
That every pianist, from Ray Santisi, Bob Winter, Paul Schmeling, everyone that was on the staff there, they just sat there with their mouths hanging open. And what is this 22-year-old kid from, he'd already had a television show on playing Hammond organ.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a real.
He made an album with Gary Burton,
Right.
and there's a lot of takes on classical music in it. And one of the, I don't know if you call it a tune, whatever. It's the first movement of a 4-piece set by Samuel Barber, the guy who wrote the Adagio Ars Triums, called Excursions. And I said, Makoto, pianists don't know this piece. This thing is so obscure. How did you guys come up with it? It's fabulous what they do. And that's when I knew. Of course, he reads music.
Right. Well, Dave McKenna used to say he didn't read music really either. And he was playing a lot of he has such an incredible left hand. He was playing a lot of the repertoire written just for left hand, and somebody caught him. He stayed at their house and he caught Nick.
But it does raise an interesting issue. Issue's the wrong word here. You don't have to be trained as a so-called classical musician in order to play classical music. And you don't necessarily have to be trained as a jazz player to play jazz, but usually you can tell what the background is when you hear them sort of in the other element.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Andre. He's one you couldn't tell he was a classical or jazz pianist.
No. I mean, he did them both so well. And it's funny because I would hear Dave, and it was obviously this organic thing that he was doing that no one else had done. I mean, he really, out of the 40s, I put Dave in a category of Errol Garner.
Yeah.
He just invented a new way to look at the music. And Dick Johnson, who was friends from childhood with Dave, he said that Dave's sister told him a story that their mother went into the hospital to give birth to her, or to give birth to there's another sibling. And there were some complications. She was in the hospital for about a week and a half. And Dave was probably 5 or 6 years old and had never shown any interest in music at all. His mother was a violinist and a piano teacher. And he never showed any interest in the piano at all. And she came back from the hospital and he was playing chorus after chorus on Avalon. He had heard Benny Goodman's recording on the radio and just went up to the piano because he liked it. And he said it was really like nothing they'd ever seen, you know? And I was lucky because I grew up with 2-player pianos in my house. And 2-player pianos
with rolls.
Yes.
Wow.
We had an upright standard 88 note upright in the basement, over 1,000 piano rolls. And in the and upstairs we had a Duart Weber reproducing, and so I could put Gershwin playing Rhapsody in Blue on, and it was getting louder and softer and sustaining the way a real close. I mean, not real, and it was my whole life. And so, but it took me, I mean, at age 10 or 11 was when I realized that I wanted to play jazz. I didn't want to play straight eighth notes. And I fought against, the teachers that I had while I'm playing the repertoire to get into a college. Like Lynn Harville was trying to get me to go to Curtis, and I didn't want to do that. Oscar gave me a few lessons, and I met Oscar. That's how I got to Berkeley. Was he said you should go to Berkeley, and then he was in Mississauga and I was in Buffalo, and I would go up to Toronto and meet up with him and have a lesson. And one of the things that he showed me about, just a thing that he did off the top of his, just the thing of sliding his fingers around in a lick that gave it that forward momentum that he was so, famous for. I worked on it for 8 years, and I incorporated it into a lot of the stuff that I do because it gives it a more, for better word, horn-like sound to the piano. You know what I mean? The problem, as you know, with the piano is you can't bend a note, you can't sustain a note any longer than, and there's limitations. And to try to develop that kind of a thing was a big thing that I worked for.
I think, slightly crazy, but not exactly. It's the one area that I feel good about regarding all this AI stuff, because the one instrument that never sounds right electronically on a computer is the piano.
Correct.
And it's because of that. It's because the decay, the touch and all that, it just can't exactly get it. Maybe they will, but not quite there yet.
But no, it's true. But so I understand, when I hear a pianist, a young pianist, I can say, like you can say, oh, classical, but many classical musicians, they can't wrap their head around the concept of jazz.
No.
And it's it seems like it's so easy.
And yet, when you go back 3 centuries or so, and you look at the Baroque era and Bach,
right,
essentially,
it's all imperfect.
It's all there.
Yeah.
The jazz idea of here's the lead line,
right?
Here's the chords.
Yep.
Figure it out, guys.
Right. I mean, obviously, these are just crazy thought experiments, but you wonder what someone like Bach would do, if he swung.
Yeah.
Well, then you could Jacques Lassier.
Yeah. And that also raises an issue that, at least in the classical, we've had to struggle with now for the last 40 years or so. Are we supposed to play in a manner that's similar to how it might have been played when the composer was alive? Or do we move forward? I fall in the latter category automatically. Why? Because one, we have the ears that have heard Miles Davis, Bill Evans, and all that. That influences how you listen to older music.
Right.
Because it's there. We don't arrive at our venue by horse-drawn carriage. We're not playing by candlelight anymore.
Right.
The great conductor, Sir Neville Mayer, had the best line. He said, if Bach had had a modern toilet, he would have used it.
That's very appropriate. Right,
So,
right. We often say, what would Thomas Jefferson think? He'd think, how did these lights get on in the house? I mean, it's true. No one needs another recording of the same thought process that went into Beethoven's Ninth 50 years ago.
And that's why
100 years ago.
you and I, is we just go back to the older recordings. To say something new about these pieces usually takes into territory that was not intended. We have to find this way to express what we believe were the intention of the people who wrote it, without distorting it to the point of view that it becomes more about us.
Right. Right. Nobody, I mean, you can't let the interpretation overpower the written.
Yeah, if you're in the middle of an improv, if you can't at some point say, okay, I still know what tune they're basing the improv on.
Right.
If you go too far away from that for too long, you're out of business.
It's not a problem. I mean, I've heard free jazz and enjoyed it over the years for the emotional thing that it imparts. But the fact of the matter is, I would see a free jazz performance and jokingly walk out and say, well, I'll be humming that all night.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's just a different thing than I want to hear. I mean, I just watched a documentary on Sarah Vaughan that I hadn't seen before. It was from when she passed away, so the early 80s or late 70s. And, I mean, that music and those performances and the music of Sinatra and the music, they are timeless. They really, and we're lucky enough to have a recording of it that we can,
Yes.
I mean, how great would it be to have a recording of Beethoven's Third, from the time?
Yeah, I think if I had, I'll ask you the question. I'll answer it first, and then you answer.
Right.
For me, if I had one artist who I would like to have heard live, but couldn't, it would have been Rachmaninoff. Oh, I really would like to have heard him. He's had these huge hits. He could stretch a 15th.
Right.
And recordings are wonderful, but a recording to me, for the most part, it helps enormously if I've heard that performer live. So I understand the sound and the impact within the confines of an auditorium or a room.
Right.
And then I can place it in a recording. I can hear, like Heifetz recordings, the mic was always so close, but I heard Heifetz a lot as a kid when I was in LA. And so I know the sound he produced. Horowitz, the same thing. I heard Horowitz several times, and I know what that sound was in a hall. It's just, you can't capture that on a recording. Who would you like to have heard that you never heard?
Oh, well, it's pretty easy for me. It would be Tatum. Because
that's right. Of course, you wouldn't have. You're too young.
Yeah, and
that's weird that I'm sitting here and I heard him and you didn't.
Right.
That is very strange.
Well, it's you heard him at the house.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea. I mean, there's so little video, and I was talking to Steve Allen one time, and he had him on the Tonight Show many times.
Steve Allen was a highly underrated.
Yes.
Pianist, composer.
Yeah, and he had Tatum on his show, and all of the kinescopes burned up in a fire in the warehouse. And I mean, so there's such precious little video of our Tatum.
Did you ever know the television show that Bobby Troop hosted, Stars of Jazz?
I've heard of it.
I don't know if I've never seen it. Maybe those were all gone too.
Yeah,
but he must have been. Tatum had to be.
Sure. But there's only two clips, two songs of Tatum, that have come to surface.
Yeah,
and to be able to sit in a room and watch that, it would have been. I mean, I'm lucky enough to see Bill Evans. I was lucky enough to see, Oscar many times. And of course, my pal Dave McKenna, Monty, and Tommy Flanagan, Junior Mance, Shirley Horn, almost everyone I got to see in New York or on the ships that I did, because those early jazz cruises, which was called the Floating Jazz Festival. I mean, it was a cornucopia, and you're at dinner and you're like, well, at 8:00 I can either go see Phil Woods or I can go see the Basie band. Yeah. Oh wait, well the Basie band's playing tomorrow, and they scheduled them perfectly so that there were 2 major shows in 3 rooms every night for 2 weeks, and you had the opportunity to see everyone.
You mentioned something and it just struck me. I was recently on an Asian trip. I was there for 8 weeks, and I was in Seoul, Korea. And the night after my concert, the Basie band was there with Patty Austin, tribute to Ella Fitzgerald. And they were having trouble selling the tickets, and they asked me to do a promo video for the Basie band and Patty Austin.
That's great.
Trying to reach their audience. Hooray.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I never saw Art Pepper.
I did.
And I guess he was, an astonishing player. Yeah. But also a very troubled guy, clearly.
A lot of them were. I never heard live that I also would like to have heard live was Chet Baker. I never heard.
I did.
You did?
Near the end. Well, not near the end, about 5 years before the end. He played, there was a guy in Buffalo that had a club called Sam Noto, who is a good trumpet player that played with Rob McConnell's band in Toronto. And he opened a little club, and he brought Chet Baker in. And I mean, at the time, his range was 6 notes, 7 notes. But just to be in the room with him and hear it. I mean, that's the thing to play. I mean, I've been lucky, very lucky, to be sitting at the piano and have Ray Brown next to you. Yeah. And just hearing that sound.
My mother taught Ray Brown how to use a bow.
Really?
Yep. He did one album where he plays the cello.
Oh, no kidding.
Mostly pizzicato, but my mother, they knew each other from the studios, of course. They were very good friends. And he asked, can you teach me how to use a bow, both for the bass and the cello? And she did.
Wow. That sound, again, never captured properly on a record. No. But that, and the same thing with Niels.
Anderson.
I played with him, and he always sounded thin and kind of, ampy sounding on records. And next to him, it was this big fat sound, just like Ray, except much more technique. And it's such a joy to have experienced those things that I understand what you're saying. When you're listening to an LP or a CD or whatever, it's no matter how good your stereo is and how good the speaker are, it just isn't the same.
But again, you can project if you've heard them live.
In your head,
you can add that element that's not quite there on the discs.
And so we've discussed the underprivileged upbringing. You guys in your life. It was really so sorry to hear that. How did you develop an interest in music?
I don't know.
Yeah, no one else.
Just woke up one day.
Yeah, sure.
That was it.
And you went. Where'd you go to school?
I went to public school all my life in Los Angeles. Yeah. When I was in high school, this is how good the school system was in California back in the 50s, the 60s. My public high school had 3 courses. It had 2 bands. It had an orchestra, and it had a composer in residence named Peter Shickley.
Oh, sure.
All of the music activities, all the arts, whether it was painting or pottery, whatever, all those were done during the regular curriculum hours. It was not that before and after school stuff. Arts were an essential part of the 3 R's, and all gone. And that's a lot of, maybe that's where we get to the heart of what the problem is.
Yep.
If you're not teaching young people early enough ages, you can't create that feeling of history.
You can't create an appreciation for it.
I would arrange the music for the high school musicals. That's where I actually got my first conducting. I would arrange the little, the songs for whatever the show was.
Wow.
And I wound up conducting them. And that's where the interest really started.
Yeah. It's amazing because when you go to Europe, they are taught that still.
Yes, but it starts so disappearing. You see it, however, more prevalent in Asia. They still, and there's a reason for that, I think, that in Korea and Japan and China, Taiwan, they understand that in order to be part of the global marketplace, they have to adapt to the Western culture.
Mm-hmm.
We have never thought the opposite. I think the world would have been a much better place if in America we had understood more about other cultures.
Yeah.
How hard could that be as a concept?
Right.
If we understood that, knew how other people think and what they feel, maybe we wouldn't be quite as bad. Obviously bad, but
yeah. No, I agree. Well, the other thing is, to keep harping on this, the point that you make about maybe this is the root of the problem is I believe that it contributes to the watering down of what we laughingly call pop music. Because again, if you're 7 or 8 years old or 6 or 5 or 10 and you grew up hearing, you get an appreciation for what music is, as opposed to this is just a background noise that mommy plays on the computer. It's disheartening.
Yeah, I think Berlstein had the best line.
Okay.
He said, "We hear music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's in elevators, it's in the malls. But do we listen to it?"
Right.
That's the key.
Yes. And it's true. And it's become this product instead of an art form that they just do the market research and they say, oh, we can sell a lot if we do a medium tempo. I mean, they write music for the beats per minute now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? Where's the idea for the song?
We also are living in a time that has moved very much away from the listening and the oral experience to the visual.
Yes.
I've been talking to a few colleagues, mostly pianists actually, and they're doing these 5 and 6 minute pieces of music that videos get created, and the usually videos are terrible. So there's a piano out in the forest someplace.
Right.
Come on, that's not the idea. But that's where we are right now. It's interesting because here you are working with people who can only be done by seeing it.
Right.
As far as I know, magic on the radio doesn't work.
No.
As far as I can tell. And yet, who was it? The comedian and satirist Louis Black.
Oh, sure.
He had a wonderful line many years ago when MTV took over the halftime show of the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Black said it was kind of like, he said, MTV is to music like KFC is to chicken. I thought that was, but he said that when you hear a song and maybe the song reminds you of a person you met, something that was important in your life, and your mind flashes to that time. Mm-hmm. He says, that's what the meaning of listening to music. But today, if you hear a song, a young person hears it, their brain goes to the video of the song.
Right.
Not the content of the song.
And now I guess MTV just stopped showing videos finally.
Oh, yeah.
They're out of the music business.
Yeah.
I'm such an old person, and I'm in only one way in what I do. I want to hear acoustic instruments playing jazz or classical music or whatever. I want to be in the room and experience it. And this idea that, records, I have an SACD player and a nice stereo.
Yeah.
I had a 23-year-old kid over at my house, and I put on, I think it may have been not a great recording, but an incredible performance of Bill Evans at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
And it was the SACD version of it, or the gold CD or whatever. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't know music could sound like this. And I said, well, listen to this. And I put on a bit of the organ symphony, and, with that subwoofer, and, you can hear. And he just looked at me and he said, well, what is this?
Yeah.
And I said, this is music. And you've been listening to compressed MP3s on earbuds your entire life. You have no idea. He'd never seen anyone play live. He'd never seen, and I mean, when I was 5 or 6, we went to a wedding my parents dragged me along to a wedding. And for the first time I heard it was just a little wedding cover band, but I'd never seen live music before.
Really?
And it changed my life.
It changes everybody. That's why we're still there. That's the one thing. When people come to hear us, they do also come to see us.
Mm-hmm.
That live experience is not like anything else. And unless you avail yourself of it, you are missing something in life. And you hit one of the great pieces, Sassoon 3, Organ Symphony.
Yep.
Just the dynamic range, the colors, all this stuff. To experience that for the first time can be life-changing.
Yeah.
I think that we're very fortunate.
They did it.
Hopefully we're not the last generations that do this.
No.
And our job is to attract people and make a difference between here's the recorded product, here's the live product.
Right.
Same piece, entirely different experience.
Yeah. And I have hope for the future, at least in jazz and in classical music, but because I know that there are these kind of kids in both. I'm working with a guitar player and a bass player now. I just did an album with them, and they're 20 to 30 years younger than me. They're in their late 30s, mid 30s, and I am so filled with hope. Now they're anomalies, because of what they play, which is the music that we love. But they grew up. I mean, to sit on the bandstand with these guys and have them know all of Oscar's trio records and all of the Riverside records and all of the, and know it and embrace it as that's what they love.
And you were mentoring them.
Well, I don't know about it.
Of course you are.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're getting to a point in their music where they have the same influences that I had 30 years later. And so that proves that if there's a desire to do it, to play Zach Perlman, that someone that's 10 is doing that.
Right.
And I don't think that's going to go away.
I think one of the last things we'll speak about, and I will see if you agree, but I think you will. When I'm teaching, or I have young conductors who come to my rehearsals and watch what I do, or I watch what they're doing, they will want to talk about little minute detail and piece of music. You did this here. And I said, the only thing you need to do as a young person, and indeed through your whole life, is ask one question. Why? Why did this person do it that way? So let's say you're doing Satindal. You listen to 6 different versions. When I listen to it, I go, why did that person go this direction with it?
Right.
I think it's the most important question.
It is. And it's also, from a working jazz musician standpoint, it's a result often of the interplay between the other musicians that are you with. You play Satindal one night at one tempo with one guy, and then the next night you say, oh, wait a minute, how about this? Because they're different, and that's one of the great things about jazz, obviously, and improvising on the spot. I would listen to, I always go back to Dave because I saw him so much, but I would listen to Dave McKenna, and he would play a song that he hadn't played in maybe 30 years on a Monday night at the Copley Plaza. And then 2 nights later, I'd hear him playing around with the tune. And by the 4th night or 5th night, he's got this elaborate, arrangement of it. And it's all, for me, I find that I play a lot of solo piano. I've got a dozen solo piano CDs out because nobody else bothers to do what I do. It's a unique thing. It's kind of, I look at myself as the next generation of Dave, because I play a lot of Oscar's harmonic stuff and Oscar's lines, but that weird thing of playing a walking bass and comping at the same time. And no one else did it. So when playing with a group, it's the amount of freedom you get to explore other ideas and knowing that they'll back you up and go with you. I mean, the guys that I did this most recent record with, there was no hesitation in trying anything because you knew that the foundation was there from the history of the music that they had studied. And they said, oh, you're going to do this, and it's just such a refreshing thing to be able to do. And the same thing with you with an orchestra. Everyone knows the material. They've played it since they were children.
Yeah.
And then you can come in and make it your own.
But I always have to explain why I do something. Whenever I have to stop an orchestra in a rehearsal, it's never good to just stop and say, well, let's just do that again without saying why you need to do that again. Right. Okay. You always have to have a reason.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Going back to your question, the big question is why? Why did you do it? Why?
So after all this, I think you and I, we've been so blessed to have this in our lives, to be part of connection to the past, but also perhaps guiding a few people who come after us. I don't think about legacy at all. I think I did what I did while I was here.
Your legacy tries to cure, of course. I mean,
it doesn't matter to me.
I know. No,
it matters.
Doesn't matter to me. Yeah, I mean,
it should. I don't care. If I had two things I think I did well. One was I supported American composers. I did a lot.
With famously so.
But not just the current ones, but the ones of the past. The other thing was to really work with young people. I founded the youth orchestra in St. Louis. I traveled to different cities working with conservatories, music schools, with high schools. To me, that's what I can do now. I try to bring that level of experience to these places, and maybe somebody comes away feeling strong. I was back in LA last summer, and there's a documentary done on me, the title of which is called Don't Call Me Maestro. Really don't like that. I truly don't like that. Now, that's for Italians, and it's for, the word maestro means master, and it's only for Toscanini is a maestro. Okay. Anyway, we went back to my high school, that one we talked about earlier, where there were the 3 choruses and all that. Now it's an armed camp. The doors and gates are locked. Everyone has to show ID. There's gate check. And we came in to do a little bit of filming, and they thought we were ICE agents. Oh, they really did.
Oh, no.
But I did have a chance. They don't have an orchestra anymore. They sort of have a marching band, and that's it.
Wow.
And they got a couple guys who have a little jazz group. And I spoke to those kids. I think they'd never met anybody like me before who was in this very bizarre field that they didn't know. But I tried to do, as we've been talking, this idea that music doesn't have boundaries that we can stretch over. Maybe I reached 1 or 2 of them. To me, that means something.
That's really wonderful. Well, I think this is a wonderful place to stop because I could go for another hour, but
that's what Zoom is for.
Yes.
At least we could do this live. We are doing this live, guys.
Yes. This is our first live, for anyone's listening. We did this in my own home, the Stereo Image live. But it's it's really great, and it just like hearing musicians. It's better in person.
It is.
Well, thank you so much, Leonard Slatkin. I'll never
Jones. Thank you so much.
I will never even put that in an email as a joke.
I got to come and hear you when you're not playing with Penn Teller.
Well,
where do we go to hear you when you're not doing that?
Well, I turn around at the piano here. No, I mean, I do a few gigs a year. I'm trying to start to do some more, but the one place that I reliably play every year is the Green Mill in Chicago.
Nice.
Because, but I will be trying to do some more things in LA and get out a little bit more. But I'm so spoiled. I mean, we do 200 dates a year, and it's tough to get a Friday and Saturday off. But I've been playing the Green Mill for longer than I've been with Penn Teller. And it's a fun.
If you want to hear me, you go to leonardslatkin.com, you look up the schedule, see what
we should do all
I got
that.
Books, I got recordings, I have videos,
but all the links of stuff. Every single link that's available about you will be on this podcast.
Yeah, except one about my ex-wives.
Well, yeah, we're not touching that one. But thank you so much, Leonard. It's so great to have you.
Take care.
And we're trying to get the word out about the Big Stereo Image podcast. If you have a chance, please join our monthly email list over at thestereoimage.com or follow us on Instagram or Threads at the.stereo.image. Absolutely follow us. Don't even bother with the damn mailing list. Just follow us. Tell all your friends, too.